early on, it's a job, right? A lot of people start their careers out because you got to make a living. You start making a living and then you start asking, like, why am I doing this? And if you can answer that and be happy with that answer, I'm like, okay, I'm proud of what I do and move from there. That's a big turning point for a lot of people.
Welcome to Builders, Budgets, and Beers. I'm Reece Barnes, and I started this podcast to have real conversations about money in the building industry, the wins, the mistakes, and everything in between. I believe builders deserve to feel confident about their finances, and that starts by hearing from others who've been through it too. This industry can be slow to change, but the right stories and the right tools can make profitability feel possible. Let's get into it. All right, Paul, mics are hot. We're rolling.
All right, here we go.
Here we go.
We're all set.
We're all set. We're ready to rip. Thanks so much for jumping on the old Builders, Budgets, and Beers.
For sure.
I'm excited to dig into your story here, and just get your perspective on things in the construction space. So I think to start things out, as we do on the show, go ahead and give the audience a little intro, a little background on yourself, where you started, how you got into construction, where you guys are now, just kind of a little story.
Yeah, for sure. So Paul Durst, work with Waldman Construction. We're a design build general contractor in northern Wisconsin, located in St. Germain, and we've just recently added a second location in Land O'Lakes, Wisconsin. So very much like northeast Wisconsin. We're in the
Question.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure they have great butter up in Land O'Lakes, isn't it?
It's a different Land O'Lakes.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll ask her on Tom. So
yeah. Okay. I digress. I had to.
So yeah, I've been here with Waldman Construction for over 18 years. I started in 2008. It's kind of a scary time to get into construction, but
holy cow.
Stuck with it. Got hired on as human resources for Waldman Construction, and I knew
HR guy.
Yeah, I knew nothing about construction. I mean, I was very upfront, so it's not like I interviewed and I was like, "Yeah, I'll come in and do your HR. I'm well versed in construction." Yeah, not at all. So everybody was aware that they had a need for human resources, and I had a background in that, somewhat heavy on insurance. So that was a big piece that they needed someone to just make sure that was being taken care of. And then, just kind of grew up with the company. I think one of the things early on was we had just purchased, my wife and I had just purchased a home, and we needed a garage. It had no garage. So I built us I learned as I went how to build by building a detached garage. And obviously I had resources at work that I could ask. But it was a great learning experience for me from a building standpoint. But
is the garage still standing?
It is still standing, even though we sold the home. We moved a long ways away, like a quarter mile. So yeah, I actually still drive by it on a regular basis, and it's still stayed.
It's got structural integrity. It was built. It was built with love.
Yep, for sure. But yeah, so with being here, we had some shakeup in the office, got rid of bookkeeping, needed someone to take that on. So I took that on, started learning about construction financials with pen and paper.
Why not? This sounds like a pretty classic story here.
Yeah, I still remember I was reconciling the bank account with like a ledger and a pencil, and our accountant was like, "Why are you doing that?" And I'm like, "Well, because that's what the previous individual had done." She's like, "Yeah, I never had the heart to like show her how to do this, but you can do it really quickly and easily in QuickBooks. Like, just let's go through this."
Dude,
this was awesome.
Hey, at least you weren't on a stone tablet with a chisel. I mean, that was like that got thrown out the door in 2000, right? They were eight years into the new process, right? Yeah.
So yeah, with that, taking on that portion of the company, just got into working with, obviously trying to understand the billing process, working more with project managers, working with them on scheduling, and now, getting versed in operations. And I was with human resources, obviously, just trying to understand like what the needs were for hiring, what the qualifications were for staff. But definitely got more as I worked longer with the business, got more and more involved with everything. And then it would have been in 2018, the previous owner, we worked on, where myself and a couple of my coworkers, a couple project managers actually, purchased the business. And then the previous owner stayed on for a little bit, couple years. And then, we've been running it, just us, for would have been 21, COVID-ish, where we were like, okay,
Time to
this is
fly out of
ours
the
now.
nest.
So, and it's nice, obviously, to have partners involved, to take on like sales and marketing. And then I can focus on, the operations, the financial, the administration. But still, it's there's every once in a while the pinch me moment of like, you're doing what?
Yeah, totally.
which is great.
Yeah, you made it work, dude.
Yeah.
You guys have like effectively like tripled the size of the business since you've started, haven't you?
Since I started, yeah. Yep. And pretty strong growth here in the last 3 years. We've had pretty consistent growth,
Yeah. Well, that's great. Okay, I just got to ask right out of the gate. What was it like, zero construction experience, not just like coming in with no experience, into a company in northern Wisconsin, which I can only imagine the field is like as textbook field as it gets. And then on top of that, you get thrown into the HR seat. Like, I can't imagine they were like welcoming arms, like, Paul, love to have you here.
Yeah.
We love HR. What was it like?
I'm going to keep this as short as possible. It was tough.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Every once in a while, you get, we have the days because my partner and the sales and marketing guy that I work with, Matt, we'll think back, because he was here 4 years before I was, and he came in with zero construction, worked through like apprenticeship, and he came up through the field. But we'll go back and just be like, oh my gosh, do you remember this? Do you remember that? And it's fun, and also like, it's interesting, some of the things we've been through. So, but it's you can't be afraid to ask and look stupid, because it's going to shorten the learning curve, Totally. And it was, like I said, with building a garage, it's literally like, I know I'm asking a stupid question right now, but I need you to answer this for me so I can do this without, and it's held on for 17 years, the garage, like you mentioned, it's still standing.
Yeah, that is the byproduct of asking dumb questions.
Yeah.
A standing garage nearly 2 decades later. Right? I love it. Okay, well, I'm gonna get in. I've been running this a bit where I'll ask a question. Okay. Sure. And then you answer it, and then we'll riff. But the question is, from your point of view, what is the one conversation in construction that needs to be had more that isn't being had enough?
It's definitely for me, it's the why are you doing this? And the reason being, you really realize you're passionate about what you're doing. And I think the why is different for different people. The why for me wasn't because I really like to, I started off because I really like working with my hands. My entrance into this was a little bit different path, but I'm obviously rewarded by, like an HR standpoint, I'm rewarded by saying like, well, our company employs, myself and 49 other individuals. Like, we directly affect people's lives in a positive way. We're a small rural community that, we can offer highly competitive wages. We can offer benefits, and that's not common. And that's something to be proud of, So like I said, it might be something, it's a different why for everybody, but I think recognizing that is, it definitely gives you a different perspective. You look at it less like, early on, it's a job, right? A lot of people start their careers out because you got to make a living, and you start making a
Totally.
living, and then you start asking, like, why am I doing this? And if you can answer that and be happy with that answer, I'm like, okay, I'm proud of what I do, and move from there. I think that's a big turning point for a lot of people.
Totally. And I think like the know your why it's fantastic advice, but it's like most fantastic advice, it's extremely ambiguous, right? And
Mm-hmm.
people
Mm-hmm.
typically get beat over the head with it over and over of like, know your why, know your why, know your why. If you're doing it for the money,
Sure.
like blah, blah, blah. It's like the other old adage, right? Is like, do what you love and the money will come type of thing.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
it's
Right.
similar in that sense. But I think like your answer of why are you doing what you're doing is like
Mm-hmm.
the importance of that question is to promote self-awareness and thought,
Yep.
right? Especially when you get into the I was in the trade or I just wanted to start a business and I landed on construction and now I have like all the dopamine, all the excitement, all the roller coaster high and lows of like getting this thing off the ground. Now it's starting to stabilize. We're maybe doing 7 figures in revenue, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we start to get into that bloodbath of like 7 figures up to 8 figures and then high 8 figures, right? And like, hopefully, could we
Sure.
ever get to 9, right? And you
Yeah.
start to think about that, and it's the people that find that deeper why that really get there. And more times than not, if you're someone who is starting a construction company that is, in the trades, starting the
Mm-hmm.
company, or your background is in the trade, like executing the work, it's like
Mm-hmm.
there's such a bigger level to then I can build a better house or
Mm-hmm.
I can build the best road, right? It's not always like that is like seemingly becomes table stakes, and it's what
Mm-hmm.
isn't what really drives the success of a business. So what's your take on that? Like when you like
Yeah.
what was kind of the evolution of you understanding your why, and how do you think of it in context of, people that focus on trade heavier than business, et cetera?
And I think that was, you know, fortunately, I came into a company that took a lot of pride in the quality of the work, the quality of the
Yeah.
project, that we were producing. So, that part of a lot of the staff find a lot of their why in being proud of what they do and being proud of the type of project that they're working on.
Mhm.
So that's almost takes it makes it a little bit easier for me, where I achieved my why is just seeing the impact that it does have on people's lives.
Yeah.
And it's being a part of a company too, where we can see growth with an employee. I mean, we can have, Matt, my partner that started out as a laborer, really not knowing anything in the trades, and now he's one of the owners of the company. So
Totally.
that's to have that potential and see people reach their potential or continue to improve. It's highly rewarding. um
Totally.
and that leads to so many different things, though. Reece, you had mentioned there's always the financial impact. Like, we need to make sure that our
Yeah.
company's successful
Yeah.
financially, or
Totally.
this all goes away, right?
Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah.
we do need to be concerned with what are our numbers and why are they that, versus just, yeah, I think we did pretty good this year. Like, we'll find
Totally.
out and hope everybody's got a job next year.
Totally. Well, and I think that goes into the why, because it's like so many guys, there's a ton of content on LinkedIn and just like thought leaders in this space from a construction accounting standpoint. It's like so many guys operate on the like our bank accounts are heavy, like we're doing
Mhm.
good. But then
Mhm.
it's like you're not really looking at like how much of that is actually yours versus committed cost, right? And then what's the delta? What's the remainder there? And as these guys are like, I've been doing it for this way for so long, like I'm not really concerned with going to that level. Like, that's typically an indicator, like not an overly strong why, right?
Sure.
And it's like, even if you're going to argue, like, I don't want to be a $10 million contractor. I don't want to be a $100 million contractor. I want to be a $3, $4, $5 million contractor and just operate this as a lifestyle business. It's like, well, you still like have the obligation to run a healthy business, right? At
Mhm.
that level, at that rate, and take some of the risk off the table. So like, were you guys always that forward thinking, or was it really until you were in a position of leadership or authority or whatever you want to call it, to where that why really meant something until you started making those changes? Or what was that evolution like?
Yeah, I think with me coming into my role, with, like I mentioned earlier, being involved with, just about everything.
Yeah.
It was a different perspective than, previous owner started out, and it really was like he just wanted to have a successful company, and the what's the saying? Are you funding a hobby or?
Yeah. Are you? Yeah. I think this is one of mine. It's like,
Yeah,
are you running a business, or are you monetizing a hobby?
yeah, yes, right. And I think,
Yeah.
I would say our company probably started out monetizing a hobby for
Yeah.
somebody, but then it grew as, staff was added, and, previous owner as well. He was obviously an intelligent business individual, but again, it was maybe just from a different perspective,
Yeah. Totally.
Ours is definitely, kind of a perspective of longevity, and, that constant growth of, like I said, if we're rewarded by providing a good living, and we're rewarded, for our staff, and a good living for ourselves, like, well, if we continue to grow and grow successfully, you can just keep spreading the love, so we got.
let us into, and it might be like take us down memory lane here, but let us, myself and the audience, into the boardroom or whatever, wherever you guys were as new partners in this business, and explain, like, what were those conversations, or that conversation, what was that like when you were like finding alignment as partners, maybe like pivoting the business into this more long-term vision, less how much can we stuff in our pockets, more how many people can we hire, how many people can we impact in the community, what's the longevity and the stability of this? What was that conversation or series of conversations like?
It's a series of conversations. There wasn't, I
Okay.
can't just look at like, well, we had this one meeting and this is exactly what had happened.
Yeah.
It was just repeated conversations, and, with us being new into roles of leadership, there's a lot of, where we came from, we were real close with some people that were like coworkers, and, we get moved up, and then they're kind of like, well, you're my buddy. Like, I'm when am I going to be part of this? And,
Yeah.
those were tough. Like, we had some tough times with that, with a couple of
Of
employees.
course.
And that led to some unhappiness with certain employees, and then they moved on. And then, that almost helped us like grow up. Like, you need to deal with some of this stuff head on. Like, you're not buddies, even though you might have been like, hey, yeah, let's go fishing, let's go hunting, let's do this, that, or the other thing. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we're running a business, and we can't,
Yeah.
do like, well, yeah, we're buddies. You're my favorite. You can make twice as much as the person doing the same thing. Like, that's not a
Yeah.
thing, right? So
Totally.
there was some definite like trial by fire, some, you learn some tough lessons. But as we got through that, and our conversations were more, less structured like a board. They were more, I would say probably weekly, sometimes a few times a week, where it's just like, hey,
Yeah.
here's what we're dealing with. What do you think? And myself and Matt have a really good relationship with that, like, where we can just like, hey, let's just have a conversation. And
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate with that as well, like never feeling like, hey, I'm out on an island, and I think Matt feels the same way. Like, I got something. I got to talk to you about something, So,
Totally.
so that's been helpful. But I think we all, find a partner in life, whether that's like the business partner. I bring that up to my wife, and my wife is extremely happy that I don't bring business home for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I know
Totally.
that that's reality for some people. And my wife and I worked together. When we first met, we bartended together, and
And that was all you needed.
we came to a pact. Like, this isn't a good idea.
Yeah. We're not. We can both be okay with that ending there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I guess back to the original, like I said, it wasn't just one time we had a board meeting where, like, this is the direction of the company. Now, it is something that we definitely have gotten a lot more structured here recently, with saying like, okay, it needs to be less and less like, myself and Matt, and we need to bring in actual like management to be on board with like, the structure of our company and where we're going and why we're doing that, and defining that for everybody. And that's made a big difference as well.
Yep.
Just getting the buy-in from your management. And these were all lessons that, I feel like along the way, I probably would have read or heard somewhere, but I'm one that just like, you got to live it to learn it. And
I ask this question or that question regularly. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, like, I probably could have shortened the learning curve of where I'm at now by about a decade, but that's okay.
I think there's like the last few episodes this concept has gotten brought up, and it's like what are the lessons that people have to experience in order for them to resonate, and how much of it can you just listen to and say, I'm going to take a left instead of a right here. And I say that I don't know, man. I think that's a part of what makes it hard, right?
Sure.
It's the people that are willing to go through the experiences to reflect on those experiences, make decisions based on those experiences. And then how successfully can you do that is really like what determines like the reward that you reap from whatever you're doing. And it's like, if it was so easy, everyone would do it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's the hard that's great. Jimmy Dugan, League of Their Own.
I mean,
Tom Hanks.
Yeah, there's probably like that lesson of like just perseverance is, what makes you stick with it and get better. And,
totally.
So yeah, still like a work in progress. I mentioned earlier, like I was hoping I can bring some like valuable information to this podcast, and kind of.
Oh, dude, you're doing great. You're doing great. One question that I have for you on this is like, okay, so it wasn't like this like Declaration of Independence conversation where you guys all sit down with your quills and map it all out, right? But it was like a series of conversations. Would you say that it was like a series of conversations, multiple a week, weekly, monthly, whatever? Would you say that it was the experiences that you had that helped you further cement your why and direct your why? Or would you say that you had the why in place and then these situations just affirmed what you guys are doing this for?
No, I think it was definitely our experiences that cemented the why. I think but I had mentioned it, a lot of times you start out a job and it's a paycheck, right? And then you learn like, well, that's only going to get you so far to be like, great. Cause you can always find a paycheck. There's a lot of different places that you can. So you stick with, what you're doing, and then understanding, there is some importance in this. And then you're like, oh, well, this is why we're doing it, and then you really try to figure out how you can, get better at it, really, and I think that's a constant, it's not like, I think I mentioned earlier, we're not going to declare tomorrow, like, you know what, I'm 100% got it all figured out. So that'll never happen. But, as long as we're moving in the right direction on a regular basis, I think that's still pretty rewarding. So.
Totally. Okay. What are some of the things that you guys are working on now? Yeah, share what you want, but like, what are some of the things that you guys are actively working on for like a growth plan, or that like you're struggling with? Like, how are you guys thinking through it?
Yeah. So some of the stuff that we look at, especially being small town, rural, like staffing is difficult,
Of course.
So we're currently looking at how we can, structure training programs better, so we can, bring in, that individual that's like, I really don't know anything, but we can still bring them on staff and have, there's still value in what they can provide. So we've talked about, we had a fire last fall. We lost our cabinet shop and our paint shop.
Oh no, like a fire in the facility.
Fire, like lightning strike, building burnt down.
Brutal. And was everyone okay? Obviously the shops
everyone was
okay.
good. It was about 10 minutes before we left for the day in the office here. And obviously it was a thunderstorm, and lightning hit pretty close. It tripped our our Wi-Fi phone system, everything went down. So I ran over to reset that in another building, and I was running back over, and it was just pouring, and so Matt and I were just kind of sitting, waiting for Wi-Fi to come back on so we could kind of close out our day. And I look out the window, and lo and behold, the cabinet shop's on fire. And
No way.
everybody had been gone for, hour and a half at that point. So, but it was definitely a like, oh, wow, this is happening.
Dang.
We had,
okay.
So that was exciting. We had plans in place already to move our cabinet shop. Thankfully, like we had literally the week before put down payments on cabinetry equipment. So it shortened the curve a little bit. It's still not fun. I don't recommend having a building fire. It's
no, that doesn't sound like a good idea at all.
Yeah, I had mentioned earlier our secondary location in Land O'Lakes that had a shop that was unused that we could quickly like pivot and make a paint shop. So, but part of the back to the training is, so now we're rebuilding what used to be our cabinet shop and paint shop. And we're like, well, we have extra space now. We should use part of that for like a training area and talking about like, well, most of the people in the trades are learning. They're hands-on learners. So now we have a space where we can do some hands-on learning instead of just like classroom on.
I talk to a lot of contractors, Paul, and I haven't heard of anyone doing this in-house. There are services where people like they can go out. There's a place in Denver, I can't remember the name of it, but it seems like a really cool spot. But it's effectively like a place where like contractors can play and they can.
Is it
like
construction instruction?
I think that's what it is, and it's I'll think of his name. I can't think of it.
Okay. I think I know what you're talking about, but yeah.
Yes. Anyways, yeah, but it's like that similar concept, right? It's like learning about R values and insulation and waterproofing and like all this stuff, right? I haven't heard of anyone doing that. That's fantastic. So you said you employ 50 people?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so what's obviously you want to train people, but like tell me like what's the vision there?
It is literally having like a classroom where you can take a carpentry labor and be like, okay, here's how to frame a wall. Like, and then, just the real basic, like we're not doing it out in the field where they feel the pressure if somebody's staring at them like, dude, that dude doesn't know anything. Like we can have an individual that can take a couple of, other people and be like, or we've recently chatted about like, trying to put together, like, what are some of the really important things that we want to be, taking care of first when we're ready. And it's the, sometimes it's just basic things you're seeing out on site. Like, okay, we got a crew out there and they're not crowning their studs because I don't think anyone really told them that they need to be doing that. And of course you're not just going to like bring them into a shop and be like, here's how to crown a stud. But we talked about like, okay, well that's an important piece. Let's just obviously mention something now. If you see it, say something, but it could be something as like, well, let's not forget to mention that when we're, training somebody that is coming in with no experience. So,
and maybe the better question. Okay. So you mentioned like bringing in like, carpenters and then teaching them other trades, other skills. Sure. Right. Or like fundamentally, is there like a bigger vision to bring people in almost similar to you, like zero construction understanding, but they are members of your community? Like, could you bring someone in with zero experience that wants to get into the trades and be like, I know how to do it the Waldman way?
I haven't really thought about that as far as bringing others in, but not a terrible idea. I think there is interest, definitely. But yeah, I'll let you know when it's up and running, Reece. You can come on out. We can have you build a few things in the shop and let us know how it's working.
I don't know. I think I'm going to stay in my lane. I would love to go. I'll promote the hell out of it because I think that's great. I think it's an awesome idea. And wait, Land O'Lakes? I'm not familiar with what part of Wisconsin are you in?
So Land O'Lakes and St. Germain. We're far northern Wisconsin. So
St. Germain.
Yep. So
isn't there a liqueur named St. Germain?
Yeah, there is.
Dude.
There is. Full disclosure, haven't tried it, but I'm open to something like that.
I haven't either. I feel like it's the name of a liquor that's used in like spritzes and stuff. I don't know. I'd have to ask my wife.
Yeah, I know.
But I didn't know that's where it started in Wisconsin.
Yeah. Well, I'm much more of a beer guy anyways, so I didn't bring any with today. Yeah, so I'm disappointed there as well.
Doesn't Wisconsin drink like more beer per capita than anywhere else in the world or something crazy like that? At least the United States.
Yeah. Yeah. it's something else. Just a real brief story that doesn't relate to anything except for Wisconsin and our issues. But I was on a different community board, and one of the ladies there, she was talking about that she was out in Wyoming, and that like her daughter, her 11-year-old daughter, like was unloading the grocery cart, and there was like she grabbed a 6-pack of beer, 12-pack of beer, whatever, and put it on the checkout lane, and the cashier was like, wow, how dare you? Like, you can't do that. Like, it's a minor. Minors can't. And the lady's like, are you serious? And the lady's like, well, yeah, you can't do that. And she's like, well, I'm from Wisconsin. We do it all the time. She's like, oh, never mind. Just like, yeah, I know
like,
what you guys are like.
Yeah, if I would have known you're from Wisconsin, that's totally acceptable behavior. I apologize for saying anything.
Sorry for ruining your day.
yeah, exactly. Hey, no. I don't want to get in the way of this. I have seen what getting in front of a Wisconsinite and their beer ends up like.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Okay, well, cool. Paul, what else do you have for the audience? Find Contractors of America. We talked about, finding and developing and following your why. Sure. Right. But what's just like a closing comment for him? Anything else that we haven't talked about that you don't want to leave off the table?
Well, I mean, it is definitely I think just getting back to that, like, there's a lot of lessons out there that can be learned. There are a lot of things that can make us better at what we're doing. It's just listening to that, and then not being afraid to take that leap. I mean, in all honesty, like, I know we're not going to sidetrack on adaptive and that, but adaptive was one of those things that was like, we got a call, and it was like, my coworker, Desi, she's like, hey, I think we need to at least take a look at this. And we were very set in our ways, right? Like, nope.
Did we cold call you?
Yeah. And it was like, it's great. So, but we were like, QuickBooks Desktop, well, how are you doing your invoicing? Oh, it's a spreadsheet, because the estimate's done on a spreadsheet. And then, it just follows right through. When I invoice, it's in the spreadsheet, and it's taking a stack of actual like tickets and being like, I got to go through, I got to code them. I know what goes where. And it was like all in my head. And then we get a phone call, and it's like, oh man, this makes life so much easier, and then the less time that I spend invoicing a client, or the easier that process is, now I'm able to delegate that. And now I'm able to get the information that I need without having to do the work. That's been a huge change for me, and that's here within the last 18 months. So that's, totally. Like I said, shortening the learning curve could have
helped. Sometimes you just need the badge of honor, though. Sometimes you need the battle scars.
Yeah.
And that's good to hear. That's good to hear that adaptive was like helpful in that, kind of like, journey of finding that out and really putting it into practice. I did an episode with Brad Stokes over at Highspire. And that's like everyone wants to do the, work on the business, not in the business, remove myself, not owner operator, just owner, like all of these things. But that's really like what needs to drive the process of you removing yourself from the process. Is like, what you're not just gonna like stop working and go to like Mexico 52 weeks out of the year and drink margaritas on the beach. Like, that's gonna get old after 8 days, right? It's like, you need like, why do I want to get out of the owner operator seat? What is my why? And if my why is to have more time to like think and internalize and digest and make decisions for the vision of the business, I can't do that if I'm putting draw packages together until 2:00 every Saturday because I can't get it done during the week and we need the cash flow to cover our AP. Like, you can't have space to think if you're doing that stuff. Go ahead.
That has definitely changed in the last 12 months, where it has allowed myself a lot more time to work on the business versus in the business, because it was in the business day in and day out, and it was like, the questions about the actual business were just more annoying at that time because I had stuff to get done. Like, don't bother me with that. I've got stuff to do. And now it is like, you can do a little bit more strategic planning. You can plan out like, well, this is what we want to do. We want to be able to train employees. Well, if you would have brought that up in the past when I still had the HR hat on and all the financials that I was dealing with, like, that would have been like, yeah, that's a cute idea, but it's not going to get off dead center, So now it's definitely, we have a culture here of we have ideas. We set out like, okay, when can we set aside some time to actually structure that? So you're not just going to an employee, project manager, like, well, we're going to do some training with employees. They'll be better.
Yeah.
Well, if you're not following through on it, they're just going to be like, yeah, I've heard a lot of promises before. So being able to take the time and show like, no, we're actually doing this. And, we're improving the business. You definitely get more buy-in from the employees as well. So
Totally. I love it. Well, Paul, I appreciate you hopping on the old Builders, Budgets and Beers and sharing your story, sharing your journey. That came with wisdom. So I'm excited to hear what the audience thinks. Can't wait to keep working with you. If there's anything I can do, let me know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. All right, cool. We'll chat soon, Paul.
Sounds good, Reece. Thanks. Take care.